The BFG by Roald Dahl. We are in the chapter 2. This is the second video of this chapter. Some reveals. How would the giant move on the street? Answer: the giant would move in spurts. Question: what was Sophie's reaction when she saw that tall, thin, black figure? Answer: she was frozen. She tried to scream, but no sound came out because she was frozen in fright. Question: when was the last time you felt so much fear that you could say that you were in a fright? Answer: fright, a serious fright. I want to answer my personal. I don't know. In my case, serious fright. I don't think I can recall. But watching movies and videos and things like that, I think you can feel that. There's a movie on the internet that is, I really like it, called I Feel Fantastic. You know, if you like creepy things, you should watch this movie. Don't watch the ones with comment or anything, you know. You have to watch the original one. But just if you like this kind of thing, right? That kind of, it's a little bit nonsensical, but also it's very, I don't know, gives you a fright, so depending on your taste. Well, question: where would the giant hide? Answer: of course he would hide on the shadowy places. Question: what did the giant have to do in order to peer into the upstairs window of houses? Answer: he had to bend down. Alright, so let's go to the continuation of our story. Then he would slide. Remember, we saw a slide when Sophie got out of bed, right? And slide there, and here is not the in its literal sense. You know, when you go to the playground, there is a kind of toy you climb. There's there is a ladder there, you climb and then you slide, you know. Here, of course, it is meaning move silently. So then the giant would slide on to the next house, stop again, and peer in, and so on all along the street, you know, moving in spurts, stop in front of a house, peer, do something, I don't know, and then go to the next one and the next one. It was much closer now, and Sophie could see it more clearly. Looking at it carefully, she decided it had to be some kind of person. Obviously, it was not a human, but it was definitely a person, a giant person, perhaps. Sophie stared hard. When you stare, is almost the opposite of peer, almost. When you stare, you look at something fixedly, right? So Sophie stared hard across the misty moonlit street. Why moonlit? Because it was lit, the best of light, it was lit by the moon, and the air was white, so it was misty. The giant, if that was what he was wearing a long black cloak. A cloak is like, let's call it like a big coat, you know, but you don't have leaves, you know, sleeves, you know, like this. You just put it on your shoulder. If you watch, I don't know, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, you'll see that people wear cloaks, All right. So this giant was wearing a long black cloak. In one hand, he was holding what looked like a very long, thin trumpet. You know, the musical instrument. In the other hand, he held a large suitcase. You know, when you travel, right? You take a suitcase. Well, the giant had stopped now right in front of Mr. and Mrs. Gucci's house. The Gucci's had a greengrocer's shop in the middle of the high street, and the family lived above the shop. What kind of shop is a grocer shop? You can say grocer's shop, just as we have it here, or grocery store. Take a look. A grocery store is like a mini market, let's call it this way. You can buy fruits, vegetables, but you can also buy products like, I don't know, detergent, rice, beans here in Brazil, you know. So that's a grocery store or a grocer's shop. Now, a greengrocer shop or a green grocery store is a little bit more specific. A greengrocer's shop is a shop where you specifically buy fruits and vegetables. Okay? So that's why green, right? Keep in mind we also use the word groceries for the small products you buy at a supermarket. It doesn't matter if you bought them at a grocery store or not, you know? If you go to, I don't know, a huge supermarket, you buy lots of stuffs, you know, lots of stuff, and then you have them on the bag, so you have your groceries, right? And then you call your kids and you say, come on kids, help me, you know, carry the groceries inside the house. Well, so this family had a greengrocer's shop, and then they lived on the second floor, right? The two Gucci children slept in the upstairs front room. Sophie knew that. So if it was the front room, it faced the street, right? The giant was peering through the window into the room where Michael and Jane Gucci were sleeping. From across the street, Sophie watched and held her breath. Remember? What am I doing here? If you answer breath, no. The verb is breathe. You know, there's an extra E. I think you can see the transcript of the story, right? But breath is B-R-E-A-T-H. And breathe is the same thing with an extra E in the end. So breathe is the verb. Look, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Okay? Breath is the thing, the noun, right? I can hold my breath. Well, I'm very good. I just stopped, not because I couldn't hold my breath longer, but then you would get bored with, you know, but I could go on for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. Hold my breath, right? If something takes your breath away, something is so impressive, so cool that you cannot breathe, right? There's a song, an old song, that goes like this: take my breath away, dum dum dum, dum dum dum. Well, if you don't know, you don't get, you couldn't get the reference, so it's pointless. But I like that song. So she held her breath because, of course, she was apprehensive. So let me read it one more. I will just point out important words for you, okay? Then it would slide on to the next house and stop again and peer in, and so on all along the street. It was much closer now, and Sophie could see it more clearly. It no, looking at it carefully, she decided it had to be some kind of person. Obviously, it was not a human, but it was definitely a person, a giant person, perhaps. Sophie stared hard across the misty moonlight street. The giant, if that was what he was wearing a long black cloak. In one hand he was holding what looked like a very long thin trumpet. In the other hand he held a large suitcase. The giant had stopped now right in front of Mr. and Mrs. Gucci's house. The Gucci had a greengrocer's shop in the middle of the high street, and the family lived above the shop. The two Gucci children slept in the upstairs front room. Sophie knew that. The giant was peering through the window into the room where Michael and Jane Gucci were sleeping. From across the street, Sophie watched and held her breath.